Once upon a time, in a small village nestled between green hills in a faraway land, there lived a young man named Dawit. Dawit was known throughout the village for his quick wit and his silver tongue, his ability to persuade anyone to do what he wanted them to do. He was considered one of the most intelligent and charming men in the region. Deep down, David had big dreams. He didn't want to spend his whole life working as a simple farmer or laborer. David wanted to become the wealthiest merchant in the region, traveling to far-off lands, buying and selling goods, and making more money than he could have ever dreamed of. David believed that wisdom was the key to achieving his goal, and he spent all his time reading books about trade secrets, studying maps, talking with merchants passing through the village, learning their trade routes, and most importantly, learning how to make cunning deals and persuade people to part with their money. But as smart as Dawit was, there was one thing he wasn't willing to do. You see, Dawit was a very proud man. He rarely asked for help and almost never trusted anyone else's opinion but his own. If he had a problem, he liked to think that he would come up with a solution all by himself. One day, Dawit heard an old man say these words, "The fear of God is the beginning of all wisdom." He stopped, turned around, and said with a laugh, "What does fearing God have to do with being successful? With my mind, I'll surpass everyone. I don't need God or anyone else to help me succeed." A few weeks later, David decided to use all the money he had saved to buy rare spices from a far-off land. The journey was long and dangerous, and many merchants had gone bankrupt trying to do the same thing. But David thought he was smarter than those fools. He had calculated everything perfectly. He believed that he could make a huge profit if he could successfully sell the spices in his village. He even hired experienced traders to accompany him on his trip. Before they left, his mother, Almaz, a very wise and religious woman, approached him and said, "My son, before deciding on such a dangerous thing, you should pray and ask God for guidance. You should also listen to the advice of your elders." But David waved his hand dismissively and said, "Mother, don't worry. I've thought about everything and made plans for every possible outcome. I don't need luck or God's help. Just watch how successful I'll be." The journey started out well, but soon they ran into problems. Storms destroyed many of the goods they carried, and their shipmates got scared and wanted to go back home. But David insisted that they keep going. He argued with the sailors, yelling at them and threatening to punish them if they didn't keep going. When they finally reached the market where they were supposed to sell their spices, David found out that some of the spices had gone bad because of the rain, and that other merchants had sold their spices for a much lower price. To make things worse, the two traders he had hired to help him suddenly disappeared, taking most of the money with them. Desperate and defeated, David returned to his village empty-handed. As he walked along the riverbank, he sat down on a stone and started crying. He felt terrible. He had lost everything and had nothing to give his family. Worst of all, he felt completely alone. No one had helped him when he needed it the most. An old farmer named Johannes, who had witnessed David's downfall, approached him and sat down next to him. He looked at David with pity and asked, "Why are you so sad?" David wiped away his tears and replied, "I've learned a lot, Johannes, but I haven't learned the most important thing yet. I thought that wisdom meant having a clever plan and being able to persuade people to follow your lead, but look what happened. I failed. I don't understand what went wrong." Johannes placed a hand on David's shoulder and said kindly, "David, you've studied a lot, but you haven't learned the root of all wisdom, which is the fear of God. This doesn't mean you should tremble and be scared of God. It means you should trust in God's ways, humble yourself, and choose what's right, even if it's hard. Sometimes success doesn't come from clever plans, but from doing the right thing." David listened to Johannes' words and realized that he had been wrong. He had been so focused on his plan and making money that he had forgotten about God and his family. Johannes continued, "The first step is to admit that you're wrong and ask for God's help." If you truly want to find wisdom, start with that. David took Johannes' advice and began to pray every morning. He asked God for forgiveness for his pride and arrogance. He promised to never forget God again and to always put his family and faith first. After praying, David returned to the village and started helping his neighbors. At first, he did it secretly, hoping that they wouldn't realize it was him. But word got around, and soon everyone knew that David was helping them. One day, David was repairing a church that had been damaged in a storm. He was working alongside other villagers when he met a kind merchant named Bethlehem. She noticed David's honesty and hard work and offered him a small role in her trade business. Together, they made plans, shared ideas, and worked hard to improve their community. Over time, David's small role grew and he became a successful merchant. But he never forgot what had brought him there: his faith, his family, and his community. Years passed and David became a respected member of his community. He shared his story with everyone, teaching them that true wisdom starts with the fear of God, which means trusting in God, living a humble life, and showing love to others. If you like this story, give it a thumbs up. Also, check out our other videos.